Every time I have hope for Venusaur, which is one of my favorite Pokemon, just to be good at literally anything, sometimes it takes a little while, but it's always kind of overshadowed by Charizard, and we're seeing that once again. We are seeing the fire support coming out with the Inferno X set. Got a lot of crazy cards in this set, and last night we had some new stuff revealed, including Mega Sharpedo, which I think is going to be an interesting card, and I think it has some interesting support, which I'll kind of talk about here. But I really think that the fire support is going to be kind of crazy with this set. We'll talk about that, really not just for fire decks, but for a lot of decks in general. But yeah, there's some crazy cards in this set, so let's go ahead and jump into it. The big news, obviously, here from last night, and if you've seen anything with the new cards, is Mega Sharpedo EX. That is the next Mega that is revealed, coming out in the Inferno X set in Japan, which releases, I believe, September 26th, something like that. So I'm sure we'll get it a little bit later on. But yeah, Mega Sharpedo EX has 330 HP. Its first attack does 70 damage, draw 2 cards. Sounds pretty terrible, not gonna lie. On any Pokemon, it sounds pretty good. For a 3-prize Pokemon, it's just kind of like, why would you go for this kind of thing? I mean, it's situational, you know. It's no different than cards like Raging Bolt, where sometimes you just have a bad hand and you need to draw cards. So, you know, it could be very situational, but I just don't see you really using that move. The interesting move here is going to be the second attack, which is Hungry Jaw. It does 120 damage plus 150 more if this Pokemon has any damage on it. So in total, you are hitting for 270 damage, and all you need for that is to have damage on this Pokemon. You know, with the cards we have nowadays, there's plenty of ways to do this, but of course they decided to add some kind of synergy with it. So alongside with this card, they are giving us the Toxtricity here, which has the ability Bad Upper, and basically once per turn you can attach a dark energy from your deck to one of your benched Pokemon, your benched dark Pokemon specifically. If you do that, you put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon, so you basically get to accelerate energy, you get to add 2 damage counters, and now we're able to swing for 270. Obviously we have cards in the format right now like Pecharunt EX, which allow you to switch to the active spot if you're a dark Pokemon. On top of that, you'll be poisoned, so you could attach a Binding Mochi, and you could be hitting for 310 damage, which is pretty decent for a stage 1. You get this thing going early, it only costs 2 energies. You know, with the Toxtricity, you can easily power it up in 1 turn. So I do think that this card right here has some potential. It hits hard, it's a stage 1, you have the Binding Mochi as well. You do give up 3 prizes. But keep in mind, we do have cards like Mega Gengar, which force your opponent to take 1 less prize card. And now we have some more support to even make that happen, especially in a deck with, like, you know, Mega Sharpedo. And that's with this new supporter card. Let me find it. It is Grimsley's move here. So look at the top 7 cards of your deck, choose a dark type Pokemon, and then put it on your bench. It doesn't say a dark basic type. So basically, if you find a dark Pokemon, let's say I'm, you know, looking at the top 7 cards in my deck, I see Mega Gengar, I can instantly put it on my bench. I don't have to evolve it, I don't have to do any of that. So essentially, I'm very curious to see what kind of lists come out, because that's kind of broken. Like, you know, you search your deck, you find a way to kind of make it to where you can draw into Mega Gengar, you know, easier. You can put it directly on your bench, and then basically Sharpedo turns into a 2-prize Pokemon instead of a 3-prize Pokemon, and that kind of completely changes the power level of this card. So I do think that Mega Sharpedo here is pretty good by itself. I think it's got some great support around it with the Toxtricity, and also with the Grimsley's card right here. I do think that has some potential as well. I'm really curious to see how dark is going to be as a deck. I think there's going to be a lot of options for it. There's a lot of good dark type cards out there. It even makes me think a little bit about cards that we have now, like Roaring Moon EX with Frenzied Gouging. When you think about all these megas that are coming out with insane levels of HP, having a card where you can instantly knock something out seems pretty good, especially if we have ways to kind of accelerate that energy with, you know, the Toxtricity or other things like Sawdust and stuff like that. So I do think that dark in general is going to have some pretty good potential when it comes to, like, the upcoming formats. And I'm really interested to see if Mega Sharpedo becomes its own style of deck. So I do think that's going to be kind of the big card from this set as far as the Megas go. We did get some other cards here. Nothing too crazy. We know about the Oricorio. I believe the Moltres might have just gotten revealed. I don't remember. Seems pretty good though. You know, 20 plus 90. One of those cards that's gonna hit for weakness against stuff like Teal Mask. So just a pretty decent card overall. A basic for 1 energy. It makes sense for fire type decks to include this. We also, I think, got the Charmander and the Charmeleon for the first time. The Charmander seems pretty decent here. 20 damage, 1 fire energy. If no energy are attached, then its retreat cost is 0. It does have 80 HP, so you can't search it with Buddy Buddy Poffin. Aside from that, it seems better kind of in every other way besides the 80 HP part, which it's crazy to say that like a card with more HP is worse, but that might be the case here if you're playing Buddy Buddy Poffin. So we did get that, and then what else did we get here? These cards here. Weavile, the Whimsicott, nothing too crazy there. The cards we need to talk about here are these support cards that we got. So first card here is an item card. This is Heat Burner. So you get to discard a fire type energy from your hand, and if you do that, you get to choose a tool, special energy, or stadium card that your opponent has in play and discard it. So seems really good, honestly. An item card where you're able to get rid of exactly what you want. There's so many decks that utilize tools, special energies, or stadiums. So this basically allows you to just kind of get rid of those specific things that you need to get rid of. It seems better than something like a tool scrapper. You know, with a tool scrapper, you can get rid of 2 tool cards, but with something like this, you're able to essentially get rid of exactly what you want. But I do think that this will be a pretty decent card to include in decks, fire type decks specifically. But the biggest card, I think, from this upcoming set here is going to be Fire Breather. Supporter card, search your deck for up to 7 basic fire energies and put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck afterwards. This seems kind of broken for a lot of reasons, not just for fire type decks. We have to think about other decks in the format that really utilize energies. One of them being Gholdengo. Gholdengo is a deck that plays one of every type of energy just because you need to be able to search out for a lot of energies. Doesn't matter what kind they are, right? With Gholdengo, let me get to my examples here. We play Energy Search Pro. This basically opens up the door to where you don't really have to play this anymore, and instead you can use a better A-spec. Like right now, Gholdengo plays this because you kind of have to play the game, right? But when a card like this exists, we don't really need to play Energy Search Pro anymore. You can play multiple copies of Fire Breather, even just 1 copy. I would recommend probably more than 1. But basically, you can use this to get the energy cards that you need to be able to hit hard. And so now that opens up the door for stuff like Prime Catcher. You just get to basically add other types of A-specs to Gholdengo, and a deck that's already super good and already is super consistent. So I do think that it's going to have a big impact on a deck like that. The other part about this card is that obviously it's going to be very nice for fire type decks, right? So we have cards coming out like Mega Charizard, Mega Charizard XEX, which does 90 damage for each fire type card that you discard. And basically, you know, you got to think about all the other cards that we have. Like, this is one of those situations where there's a lot of cards that have potential, right? But they're missing that one thing to really be good. But now we kind of have that, right? So cards like Emboar, which are in the format, with the Inferno Fandango. As often as you like during your turn, you may attach a basic fire energy card from your hand to one of your Pokemon. Now we have a way to get all these fire type cards in our hand, and we're able to accelerate them and put them pretty much anywhere that we want. We have cards like Ethan's Ho-Oh EX, kind of similar in a way. You get to attach, you know, basic fire type energies from your hand to your benched Ethan's Pokemon. So just kind of another acceleration option, just a way to get the energies into the hand. Just seems really good overall. Like, I've got to say, I think that this card is going to be very good specifically for fire type decks, but also for stuff like Gholdengo. I think it's going to be really solid. I really think this gives Emboar a lot of potential. It is a stage 2 Pokemon, so obviously you got to find ways to get this thing into play, but I think it has the potential to be kind of crazy. I mean, you think about a lot of the strong fire type attackers, but even outside of just fire type attackers, right? We do have cards, when you think about it, like an Iron Hands EX, right? Something that you can quickly power up, you know? Obviously, getting the Emboar into play is going to be a little bit more tricky at times, So it's not going to be as simple as, you know, just put this down and you can start accelerating energies. But I do think that this gives Embor the potential to really be useful in some of these types of decks. And yeah, I mean, we're gonna have to kind of wait and see what happens with it, but I do think that this card right here is gonna be one of the better cards in the upcoming set for sure. And on top of all the cards I mentioned, we do of course have the Oricorio EX here, where if you have a Mega Evolution Fire type Pokemon in play, then you can attach a basic Fire Energy from your hand to one of your benched Pokemon. So another way to kind of accelerate energy. Again, with a Pokemon like Embor, you can attach as many as you like, so that's very nice, but it's harder to get into play. With a card like Oricorio, it's easier to get into play, but you can only attach one at a time. So yeah, some really interesting cards here. I'm excited for Sharpedo to see how the Dark type decks do, but I'm also very excited to see how much of an impact this Fire Breather card has. I think it's going to have a pretty big impact. We will have to wait and see. But go ahead and let me know in the comments what you guys think about this new set. Let me know what you're excited for, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.